The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local journalism today at chly.ca/donate. Local news doesn't survive without local support.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. The transit strike in the Cowichan Valley has passed the 6-month mark. Outside of limited handy dart service for appointments related to renal dialysis, cancer treatment, and multiple sclerosis, the region's transit has been off the roads since February 8th. Service in the region is contracted out by BC Transit to French company Transdev. The workers in the region are represented by Unifor Locals 114 and 333. Workers voted last Thursday to reject a plan to take the dispute to binding arbitration. I spoke with a representative from Unifor National about the workers' demands.
My name is Gavin Davies. I'm the national representative with Unifor. We represent the bus drivers, maintenance workers, handy dart workers, and the Cowichan Valley.
And those workers have been on strike since February. It's now the longest transit strike in the province of British Columbia's history. Last week, the workers voted to reject binding arbitration. Why?
Because there was still, it was felt that the binding arbitration would not address some of the issues that the members still have. They've been out on strike since February 8th, as you pointed out, and to go to binding arbitration, there would still be a lot of outstanding issues that an arbitrator wouldn't be able to make recommendations on.
What exactly are the demands of the drivers that aren't being met by offers?
Well, there's the financial aspect, compensation for work that's done similarly in Nanaimo as well as in Victoria. So that is one item. How the service is delivered in the province of British Columbia with the P3s is another one. Still outstanding items regarding running times, breaks, and washrooms.
So 3 things there have been reported on consistently: wages, discrepancy between wages between drivers in Cowichan and Victoria or Nanaimo, access to washroom facilities, and break times. Could you give me maybe a bit more detail about each of those? Like, what are the specific differences or things that aren't happening?
And so it's like the compensation between a bus driver in Victoria, and there is a grow in a 5-year step rate in Victoria, which there is not in Cowichan Valley. But once you get to the top rate, same as in Nanaimo, the top rate, it's almost a $7 an hour wage difference. Anybody who lives in the area understands the rising costs of living in the Cowichan Valley. So that hasn't been addressed. To close out or maintain a wage gap because Victoria and Nanaimo just keep moving further and further ahead of this group. Washrooms, these private contractors, they have the inability to put in washroom facilities. That's something that's due the sole responsibility of the municipalities and BC Transit. So that's a big issue. And then also with BC Transit's responsible for making the blocks, which is the paddles that the buses operate on. Although the paddles are constructed by the private contractors, it's built on blocks by BC Transit, and the operators have seen over the course of a few years is that the running times are getting less and less. So it's harder to maintain the schedules on time. And in addition to that, if there are washrooms available at, say, a London Drugs or a Save on Foods, there's inadequate amount of time for the operator to walk, wait in line with the public, go to the washroom, and then come back to the bus and leave on time.
What is the fix for those issues beyond the compensation issue? What is the fix to washroom infrastructure?
That have BC Transit and the municipalities, because it's not limited to just here. These transit strikes have been going on now for the last few years. Is that BC Transit and municipalities, although not to be active at the bargaining table, we understand that that's with the employer, Transdev, or another third-party contractor, and the union. But these BC Transit and the municipalities, there has to be a venue to which it is that the union can meet and have discussions with them to address these long-term ongoing issues.
And to this point in this dispute, that has not existed?
Not at all. BC Transit and the municipalities have taken the position that this is between a contractor and their employees. And we're saying is that the contractor can address some of these issues, but they can't address funding. They've put in an RFP that could be 5-7 years down the road, like length of an RFP, not knowing what the inflation rates are going to be, the struggles that workers are going to have. Whereas BC Transit can deal strictly with Victoria Transit and have a flowing model there, and similarly with Nanaimo, where they bargain directly with the city. So we need them to address that when there are changes done to those compensation packages, the BC Transit needs to also be able to look at the third-party contractors and make changes to what their funding is. So that's one of the items that we would like to see addressed as well. Otherwise, these disputes are just going to continue.
In July, there was a provincially appointed mediator. There was an offer based on recommendations from a provincially appointed mediator. What was the issue? Why was that rejected?
It was a creation of, there was a step rate that was created and it didn't close the wage gap. That was the number one thing. Again, there was language regarding washrooms. But it did not, once again, go far enough. It just circled around the main issues. But, again, it didn't take care of the root cause, didn't solve the issues. And the members felt that they've been out on strike since February 8th. And this is the opportunity to try and get these things fixed. Similarly to what happened in the Fraser Valley and what also happened in Whistler Transit.
Has the union been in conversation at all with the office or the Minister of Labour in the province?
Their union has been, not myself, but Lana Payne's office, the national president, her office has been in touch with people within the province of British Columbia, and I do not want to comment on that any further because it certainly wasn't me specifically having those conversations.
You've talked about issues that you feel are for the regional district and for BC Transit to take action on, whereas thus far their stance has largely been, you suggest that this is a dispute between the workers and the union and the contractor Transdev. Would you like to see the model that BC Transit uses to contract out services to different companies in different regions? Do you think that model is working? Would you like to see that change?
That it has to change. Otherwise, we're just going to see more and more of these disputes. And these disputes aren't solely with Unifor. QP, they've had the dispute. ATU have had disputes. ATU is in bargaining right now. And it's when we talk to the other unions, which we do, the issues are identical. So if they don't change how they've been doing things since the 1980s, then these disputes, there's a good possibility that they're going to continue. In my view, the system is broken.
What's the situation for the bus drivers who have been striking? Is there any kind of a strike pay for them, for example?
There is, but the strike paid is nowhere near what it is that they get working. And, I'm not going to go into specifics, but I can state unequivocally that their financial situations for a lot of the workers are dire. This is not something that they take easy. There is significant struggles financially for these operators and the mechanics and the handy dart operators.
What do you see as a pathway to this strike ending?
That's $1 million question. So the union is open. We always have remained open to further discussions with Transdev. We've remained open to the possibility of discussions with the municipality, CBRD, as well as BC Transit. And hopefully through those discussions is something that we'll be able to foster a resolution to this and see where we go going forward.
Have you been able to meaningfully negotiate with Transdev?
We have. In other jurisdictions, we were able to, in Vernon Salmon Arm. Last year, we were able to resolve the issues there. And we're currently bargaining in Kamloops. Whistler Transit, which is not Transdev. So we have bargaining there. And then we enter into bargaining with Handy Dart Victoria in the fall.
Is there anything else you think it's important for people in the area to know about this strike?
No, I think we've covered everything off. And as I say with all my interviews, is that this is not something that's taken lightly. The striking members and the unions understand the difficulty, the hardship that this has on the community at large. It's, again, not something that we take lightly, and it's, we apologize for any and all inconveniences this causes, but it's not our fault. At some point in time, all workers will have to stand up and fight for what they feel is right.
Gavin Davies, thank you very much for taking the time.
No worries. Have a good day.
Gavin Davies is a national representative with Unifor. A spokesperson for Transdev said that the company wasn't taking interview requests at this time and directed me to a statement that said, in part, that the last rejected proposal included a wage increase of more than 15% over 4 years for conventional drivers, pension enhancements, and investments in working conditions such as improved access to washrooms.
Midcoast Morning is part of our nonprofit newsroom project, supported by listeners like you. Keep this program on the air by funding it today with a monthly sustaining donation at chly.ca/donate. We've got tote bags and shirts if you need an incentive.
On today's program, we're speaking about the transit strike in Cowichan, which has passed the 6-month mark. I spoke with Lake Cowichan Mayor Tim McGonigal, who's also Vice Chair of the Cowichan Valley Regional District. Mayor McGonigal, what have you been hearing from residents about the impact of this strike?
Well, we're hearing from a number of residents throughout our region who are provided the service through participation. Very rural portions of our community are feeling the impact more than the downtown cores of the areas that are served. We're hearing about missing doctor's appointments or jeopardizing education as school is getting ready to be re-implemented. We'll receive communications about frustrations and dissatisfaction with the length of the service, how long it's taken to reach a resolution. But I think it's important to note that the Cowichan Valley Regional Board is not part of the negotiating process. That is between Transdev and BC Transit. We are just the funders of the service, our portion. So it's frustrating, but we're certainly not willing to get involved in the negotiating process, unfortunately.
Well, what do you see as the role of the regional district in trying to do something to get transit service back for people?
Well, we have sent a letter to the Honorable Jennifer Whiteside, Minister of Labor, expressing our concerns. It is the longest transit strike in British Columbia history, and our residents are facing undue hardship over these last 6 months. We have asked that there maybe be a voluntary cooling off period, or consider binding arbitration if necessary. And we understand that the province may not have the authority to compel such measures, but we believe that its leadership and influence could help bring both parties closer to the agreement.
Do you think that the systems underpinning transit in the province, do you think they need some kind of reform?
I believe there was a promise to look at that through the province. So I would hope that they would initiate that sooner than later, to look at the service model throughout, especially rural electoral areas, to provide the service that the community wants and needs.
What are the specific factors when you are a rural regional district? What makes that more challenging in the way transit service is delivered that could be contributing, could be leading to a situation like the 6-month strike?
Well, part of it is ridership, the lack of consistent full buses, for instance. Within a rural area, you have limited access to routes, limited access to busing times, etc. So we understand we're not a similar system to Metro Vancouver or Victoria, who is very urbanized. Our urbanized routes and our Nanaimo Express Route, Victoria Express Route are significantly utilized, but the outlying areas do have a limited ridership, but it's still an important transportation mode for some of our most vulnerable populations.
A representative for the union Unifor suggested that BC Transit and the municipalities have taken the position that this is a dispute between the union and the contractor Transdev. But what's caused some friction is that some of the issues they're concerned about, things like washroom infrastructure, are things that would require some action from a party other than Transdev. On that specific front, washroom infrastructure, what do you think? Is there a role for the regional district or BC Transit to do something more?
I think each municipality or area that is served by this service could look at implementing the usage of bathrooms within their communities, if that is something that the local authority feels is appropriate. I know we have had initial discussions in the town of Lake Cowichan of how we could accommodate that through our public works department. So it has been suggested and investigated as to how we could accommodate that. There has been no positive initiation of this, as the negotiations are still ongoing.
Is there anything else you think it's important for people to know about this transit strike or its impacts on people?
I think it's important that we get the service back as soon as possible for all involved. I, as a longtime union member, certainly understand the impact that it has not only on the membership, but also the communities, the ridership. We're consistently getting emails and calls about frustrated residents within our regional district who feel they're paying taxes for a service that they're not being provided, and have been corresponding with different levels within the province of British Columbia on how they could receive a rebate of their taxation for this service that they're not getting service for. So we certainly feel the frustration, but we hope that both sides can at least come to a mutual agreement that respects both sides, and then move forward on a long-term plan to increase the level of service and to increase the compatibility of transit within the Cowichan Valley Regional District.
What's your understanding of how the finances have worked over the 6 months that this strike has gone?
I'm not positive as the implementation or whether it's just overhead that has been accommodated. We do have a facility that we have in the Duncan area that we do take care of. There has been no maintenance on the buses, for instance, or no fuel costs, etc. I'm not positive as to total implications financially on that.
Mayor McGonigal, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me on this.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
Tim McGonigal is Vice Chair of the Cowichan Valley Regional District and the Mayor of Lake Cowichan. Reached out to the office of the Minister of Labour in British Columbia. The minister was unavailable for an interview. A spokesperson from the ministry said that the ministry is reviewing the situation to determine how the government can best support the work of the parties towards resolution so that transit services can be restored as soon as possible. The statement also said via email that the best, most lasting agreements are reached at the bargaining table. I also reached out to BC Transit, but did not hear back ahead of production time. Peter Brinda is a case manager with the Cowichan Valley Brain Injury Society. I spoke with him about the impacts the loss of transit service is having for people in the area. What have you seen as far as the impacts of this transit strike more than 6 months in?
Well, I think that there is a certain level of really like devastation among the vulnerable people on the island and around Cowichan and the Duncan area. I believe that the vulnerable sector are not choosing to take transit. They have to take transit in order to participate in the community around them. Transportation plays a significant role. And by what I've seen in this city and other cities in other provinces, is that the conversation tends to focus on, strictly money. The cities talking about their budgets and things such as that. What I don't hear a whole lot of when these negotiations are taking place is that people are literally stuck in their home for the entirety of the bus strike. They don't understand that these vulnerable people do not have the money to take taxis. They are very expensive. They may not have friends or family that have cars available to drive them places. Some of these people, need wheelchairs, and they need, support staff, and there is literally no way to get around. So they're stuck at home. In my position, I field phone calls all of the time from individuals that have sustained acquired brain injuries, and they are looking for help. We normally invite these individuals to our office where we can do an intake. But unfortunately, often they tell me that, they don't have their own vehicle and they have no way of getting around. And so, we have to meet over the phone. And that happens. Sometimes we have to talk on the phone. But at the same time, I don't think that a person should be excluded, from participating in the community and showing up in person for meetings and things like that. In fact, I would go as far to say that transit is not a budget issue, but it's a human rights issue. And I'm quite frankly tired of our vulnerable people being overlooked.
What are you hearing about ways people are trying to cope with the situation?
Well, I have people that will have a friend or maybe a family member that has a car that they can occasionally get picked up and taken places. But the individual that I speak to generally has no control over when that can happen. So we usually make loose plans, and then they have to, call friends and family. And if they are out of town a little bit, they've got to come up with, some gas money or something that they're going to offer the person. So yeah, they're just incredibly dependent, on other people's schedules as opposed to being able to set their own schedule. And that's just if they're lucky enough to even know somebody that's able to drive. The other thing is that most vehicles are not equipped to handle wheelchairs. And so it takes, a lot of effort to transfer a person from the wheelchair into the vehicle. And then the person has to fold up the wheelchair and either fit it into their back seat or their trunk if their vehicle is big enough to do that. So in a lot of cases, the vehicle is not able to transport a wheelchair. So, they can't rely on that person to transport them. You need bigger vehicles. You need vehicles, that they can either sit in their wheelchair and get strapped in, or they need vehicles that are big enough for the person to transfer from their wheelchair into the vehicle and then to be able to store the wheelchair while they're driving.
Is there a message you'd like to pass on to either the provincial government or anyone involved in the logistics or the systems that are underpinning this conflict?
Absolutely. Well, the message that I would like to pass on is that people that are that have physical disabilities, that have acquired brain injuries, that have various diagnoses that prevents them from transporting themselves. The buses are really the only way that these individuals can participate in the community.
Is there anything else you think it's important to bring to the conversation about the impacts that this strike is having on people?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about impacts, I would just suggest that anybody that is wondering, how the transit strike is affecting people, I would just suggest to people that maybe they just stay home for 6 months. Don't go anywhere. Do all of their business over the phone and see how that changes their life. Put yourself in their shoes. Humanize the people that require this service. And I think that there would be a different outcome.
Peter Brinda, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me on this.
Thank you.
Peter Brinda is case manager with the Cowichan Valley Brain Injury Society. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer and Arby Frew is our technical advisor. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and generous listeners like you. Support our news, current affairs, and arts and cultural programming through our nonprofit newsroom project today by making a monthly sustaining donation at chly.ca/donate. This program gives thanks to the Snuneymuxw First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.